Well, hi, and thanks for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel. Welcome to Chapter 9 in our multi-part series where we're finishing up on a custom 95 left-handed stock that Mr. Mark Myers donated to the channel. Thank you so much, Mark. You'll see him in the comments. If you don't know who Mark is, you can find him in the comments of just about every video. And I can't thank you enough for your interest in the channel and for this wonderful donation to the channel, Mark. It's gorgeous. It's almost done. Stay tuned. Couple more weeks, guys, we're going to have the big reveal. So at any rate, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the checkering today, and I want to just tell you up front not to expect too much from me with checkering tools. It's been a long time since I did any checkering, probably 25 years. Back when I did do it, it was rare that I had to do a new pattern. Exactly what I was doing is doing a lot of refinish work, professional refinish work for people. I would re-blue guns and redo stocks and all of that stuff, install butt pads, you name it. That was all the kind of work that I was doing. So basically what I would run into is a situation oftentimes where the checkering was all worn down over the years and I would have to freshen it up. So that's mainly what I use my checkering tools for. And freshening up existing checkering is a lot easier than making a brand new pattern. So we're going to move in today and you'll see what I'm talking about. You're going to see some mistakes. I apologize, but that's just the way it is when you haven't had a lot of experience in a long time. Anyway, we're going to move inside. You'll see what I'm talking about. I want to thank you guys again for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel, and let's get inside. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got the stock all set up in what's called a checkering cradle. Now this is an amateur checkering cradle. This one you have to clamp into a bench vise or some other way to make it anchored, whereas a real true checkering cradle is actually a bench that you sit at, and it has something similar to this out in front of you where you can work with it and change the angle into all different kinds of directions. But this is a pretty rudimentary one, and it was made for somebody like me who is only going to do checkering once in a great while and isn't going to make it into a full-time type of deal. So anyway, you can see that I've started doing checkering, and if you look real close you can see that I made some mistakes with the checkering where some of the lines actually ran together, and that shows a lot of amateurism. There's one up there and there's one up here that needs to be kind of repaired from here on. I can't really do much about that except when I go back with the fine tool, maybe I can just blend it in a little better. But you can see some overruns down here in the bottom. Those aren't any big deal because I can get rid of those. That's one of the advantages of an oil stock. You can do that. I also bumped out of there a couple of times up here. A lot of this stuff from the overruns are close enough where you can actually fix them by using the bordering tool, which I'll show you in a second. So anyway, so this is how it's set up. And what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how each tool works right here, and then we're going to flip it around and we're going to lay out the pattern for the opposite side, and we'll get started checkering that and that'll be the basic tutorial as to how it's done. All right, so let's move over to the bench and I'll show you what the tools look like and what you're going to need in order to do this job besides this checkering cradle we have here. Okay, so here we are at the workbench, and I've got the tools laid out, the basic things that you're going to need in order to do this job. So we'll go over these things a little bit. The first thing you're going to want to get is some sort of magnification device that will allow you to get up close and really see what you're doing. I forget what the magnification is on these. Let me see if I can check for you. Maybe the box will say. It's an old time. Yes, it's a 4-power magnification, so that's about ideal. You could get away with a little bit less, but I wouldn't go too much higher than that either. It'll require that your distance to the work is too close. But at any rate, that's a real important thing to have, is some sort of magnification device that you can wear hands-free so that you can do the job. Okay, so starting on the top row up here, you'll see a couple of cardboard pieces that I have cut out. This is the basic pattern. I wanted something real simple. You could see that when we were on the stock, basically what we've got here. And this is just a real simple pattern for the grip that I laid out that we're going to put on the opposite side of the stock in a few minutes, and we're going to show you how the whole process is done from beginning to end. So that's what this is for. This is our pattern to lay out the checkering area on the stock. Okay, and the next thing you have are two of these, and these are geometrically the same as far as measurements go. However, they're a ratio of one another. This measures 3.5 inches by 1 inch. That is the standard layout pattern. This one is just a bigger size, which measures 2 inches by 7 inches. Basically just doubling the size of this one, and we end up with this unit here. So these are used to lay out the actual diamond pattern that you're going to carve into that wood. And this is basically the shape of the diamond that will be in our checkering pattern when we're all finished, at least in theory. So each little diamond will be shaped just like that one, or just like this one, but of course much smaller. Moving down over, also up here on the top row, is just a piece of some kind of strap material. This just happens to be Velcro, and I didn't choose it because it's Velcro. I choose it because it has a very firm edge right here, but it's also flexible. So what I use this for is, once I draw my diamond pattern on the stock, and I'll show you how that's done, then I use this to extend on that line, but this will follow the contour of the grip. So if I'm coming up and over the hump on the grip, I can still maintain a nice straight line, whereas if I was using a straight edge, there's no way I could do that. So this is a very important tool, something that you can use as a straight edge that will follow the contour of whatever piece you're working on. Okay, so that's what that's all about. All right, bottom row, we have a grease pencil. This tool right here is used to actually draw the pattern when we use the pattern here. So we're going to lay this on the stock, we're going to draw around on the shape, and that gives us our starting point of where to begin checkering. All right, so that's what the grease pencil's for, is just for laying out where you're going to do your work. All right, some guys save this for last, some guys don't use it at all. I prefer to do this first. So once I have the pattern laid out, then I go around the border with a bordering tool, and that's what this is. This, if you'll notice, has a cutter on the end. Then the cutter has two sides of teeth with a space in the middle. So if you look down the cutter, you can see that there's a little groove right down the center. And basically what this does is this cuts two narrow grooves in a nice straight line side by side, a nice parallel line, and that's what you call a double line cutter that will cut all around that pattern that we put in the stock, and this acts as a border. Now, it's the real good craftsmen, they don't need a border as a rule because they're that good. For me, this hides a multitude of sins, but I still have some others, as you can see, that I can't hide with a bordering tool, but there's other ways to fix some of that. Okay, so that's the first actual cutting tool that I use once I get the pattern laid out on the stock. So right there is your bordering tool. Next in line, this is a coarse cutter. I can get you in focus. Should be in focus. Here we go. This is a coarse cutter, and the way this works is it just cuts a single line. You'll notice there's only one row of teeth, so it's only one straight cutter right there, and that's used to deepen a groove that you already started with one of the other cutters. In this case, it would have been the bordering tool. So once I get the border laid out with that first tool, I can actually go in with this one and clean it up a little bit and make it a little deeper. So this is just a coarse file for doing a nice rough cut. It cuts a lot faster than the fine file, which is the last one we're going to use. Okay, so that's what that's all about. All right, and then we have what we call a left and a right. This happens to be the right cutter. So once we have a nice groove in the stock, we can use the blank side. On this one, it also has two cutters. One has teeth and the other does not. So we use the blank side to ride in the groove that we just cut previously. And while we're doing that, this one is cutting a groove for the next line. You understand? And this is a right cutter because if we were holding it this way, pushing it through the groove, it would be cutting a groove on the right hand side of the groove that's already in the stock. You get the idea? So that is a right side cutter. Now, this one is the same thing, only it's a left side cutter. So in this case, you'll see that the cutter is on the right, and the follow or the guide is on to the left side, so that when you put it over here, the guide is in the right hand line and the cutter is cutting to the left of that. So this is a left hand cutter. Understand? So there's different times when you'll need both of these. Also, by the way, you can buy these in many different line per inch configurations. I'm using a relatively coarse one, which is 18 lines per inch. One of the easiest ones to use is 11. If you're going to start brand new at this, 11 lines per inch is a nice way to get going because it's a lot easier to do with a lot fewer mistakes. But this is another step up. This is 18 lines per inch. That means the gap in between these cutters and the follower here is just enough to come up with 18 lines that you've cut per inch linear across this way. So you'd cut 18 lines. Next tool, this is basically a coarse cutter, but it's a short one, which allows me to get into some really tight areas. I can get up in the little nooks and crannies where I'm afraid to run that larger coarse tool. So this is good in finishing up a line that comes into a tight area. Getting both ends of them done is oftentimes made a lot easier with this little tool right here. And you can see that it has a different angle, which means that when I hold it, I'm going to hold it up on a higher angle, and it gives me a little more control over when to stop, so I don't run over the edge of that line. So, can't get you in focus. There you go. So that's cuts on both sides, just a real small coarse cutter. And this one here is a lifesaver. I bought this after my first couple of jobs, and this is, if you don't get yourself in too deep and you start to run astray with a line, you can use this one that has a nice long surface of cutters on a straight part of your stock, and you can lay that down in the line where the line's still good, and you can follow through and try to straighten yourself out again. If you go too far with it, this one won't really help you, but sometimes it'll get you out of a jam. Really nice thing to have. You just have to be wise enough to know when to resort to it and don't wait too long. So that's what that's it. That's a whoopsie fixer right there. Lastly, we have another single cutter. This one is a fine tooth cutter, and the reason that's for your finishing. Once you're done with all the rough layout, you go back with a fine cutter and you smooth it all out enough to call it finished. So that's a fine tooth cutter, and that's what that does. So this goes back after everything else is done. You run through the whole pattern all over again with a nice fine cutter to smooth it all out. All right. Last thing we have on the bench is a soft bristle bronze or wire or brass brush, and I use that just to clean out these files. As we go along, sometimes they'll load up with debris, and I just use this to clean out that debris so that the file stays fresh and the teeth are nice and clear. All right, and so that's what that's all about. So we're going to move over to the bench itself where the checkering cradle is, and we're going to go over how each of these tools operates one at a time. So let's start with the bordering tool that we just talked about. Now, on the other side, we're going to go ahead and lay it out too. So you'll see how that's done. If you want to skip ahead, you can see that further down in the video. But for now, we're going to show you what I've been doing and what each tool does. So that'll give you a much better idea of what's going on while I'm actually doing the work on the other side. Okay? So we're going to start with the bordering tool. That's the one, again, that we talked about that has, let me try to get you in focus, that has two rows of cutters side by side, and we use this to do the border. All right, so now we're going to move over to the bench, and I'll show you how each one works. So hang on, I'll be right with you. Okay, so this is the pattern that I've already begun, obviously. This is the one we just talked about a little while ago that had some mistakes in it, which we're going to have to correct. However, that's not what we're here to show you right now. I don't want to dwell on those mistakes. So let's show you how each of these tools works and where they're employed when you're doing this kind of work. So back once again, we are looking at this bordering tool. That's the first tool. This is what I would use is once I had this pattern drawn out on the stock right where I want it, I lay it all out. I use that grease pencil to trace around that pattern that I made. And once I have that grease pencil line, then I'm going to go at it with this tool, and I'm going to follow that line like this. This is, if you notice, there's two lines that go right around the border of the pattern, and that's what this cuts. So I just put this right in the two lines, and I'm just going to gently push it back and forth. And the more I do this, the deeper the grooves will get. And right now I'm not wearing those what do you call it? Those magnifiers like I told you you should wear. Alright, so you can see how that's already making it a little deeper. you can also probably see that it doesn't get me as close to this corner down here as I want it to get. So sometimes you have to turn it around and come in this way, but I found a lot of times that it's best to reposition the whole unit to finish. Like for this, for instance, I can finish up here real good or get right into that top edge, but getting down into this one is hard because I would have to reverse the tool and come in this way, and it's hard to stay straight. So when I've finished getting in all of these that I can get at real easily, I'm going to go ahead and reverse that cradle so I can come at this from a different angle, and you'll see how we do that too at some point during this. So anyway, that is how the border tool is used. It's just to do this double line that runs all the way around the pattern, just like so. Okay. All right, so now moving on to the next tool. This is a coarse cutter right here. Okay, so as you can see, it just has a single row of teeth, and what I use this for is for deepening things like the border that we just cut. So I can put it in one of those two lines that we made, and I can actually make that line a little deeper just by filing inside that line. Now it takes a light hand. You don't want to push too light because you want to be effective. But if you push too hard, it's real easy to push yourself right out of the groove that you're trying to work in. So it takes a little while to get a handle on how hard to apply pressure. All right, so again, that's what you see when you use the coarse cutter. I don't know if you saw that, but I just made that inside line almost as thick as the outside line now. Okay, so coarse cutter just deepens a line that you've already got going. Okay, all right, moving on. All right, this is where you get to see a little progress with the pattern. This is a right-hand cutter, the one we showed you at the bench a few minutes ago. And the way this works is that this blind one right here, the one with no teeth, that portion of the cutter, this follows in a groove that we've already cut. And while it's doing that, the teeth on this side are going to lay out the line for the next cut. And it's very tedious. That's why the professionals get a lot of money for this. And most of them now use a machine that does this. Most of the factories use laser etching now. This is the old craftsman way, and it's real tedious. And it's one of the major reasons why I'm not real good at this is because I try to avoid it at all costs. All right, so again, right side cutter, and here's where we're going to use this. We have a line right here, this bottom one, the most extreme one to the right, and we're going to work off that line to the right. All right, I'm going to get myself down close to see what I'm doing. Hopefully I'm not in your way. All right, so now I can feel that the cutter has dropped into the groove. I mean, not the cutter, but the blind guide. And so now, while I stay in that groove, I'm going to just lightly push this cutter across the stock, just like that. And I'm going to do this a couple of times in a row. And you can see that I have to rotate this as the contour of the stock changes. There we go. All right, so you can see what we did is we just started a new line. And now that we have that line established, we're just going to make sure that we've got it set just where we want it. Okay, so now we just laid out the next line for the stock. So what do? Now we go with the coarse cutter and we make that line a little more defined. And find that little groove. You can actually kind of hear it and feel it when it locks in. And we're just going to follow that groove. Turning the cutter as the stock angle changes. Trying to keep it perpendicular to the wood. Alright. So that's what the coarse cutter does, is it just deepens the line. And we're going to go over this after everything's done. We do it all again too. I go back through. So like I said, real tedious, long process, but it makes it nice and it does serve a function. And it would just look kind of plain if we didn't do this, as far as I'm concerned. My wife says she absolutely hates checkering. She thinks it ruins the look of a good piece of wood. I don't know. I disagree. For me, I've been around guns so long that it looks naked without it. So that's what we're doing, and that's why we're doing it. All right, so the next cutter is a left side cutter, and we'll show you how that one works. All right. So the left side cutter looks a lot like the right side cutter, only in reverse. So the guide rides in the groove that's on the right, and the cutter cuts another groove on the left, like that. So we can use that up here on this side to draw another line going up through this area. And that's how you do that, like this. So I get my, I think we're in there. Feels like it. Okay, yep, now we're in the groove, and now I'm just going to run through this groove and try to let the line that you cut tell you where to go. Don't try to tell the cutter where to go. The cutter should know where to go if you did what you're supposed to do. Also, it's a good thing that we waited. It's been a long time since I came back to this stock and began checkering, which is good because that gave the finish a good long time to cure and become hard. And I can tell you that it did become hard because it's actually dulling my tools a lot faster than it usually does. That's going to make it difficult to do a good job as well. Alright, so here we got that line. Not quite as defined down on this end. See, I have my fingers way up close. It helps me to control it a little better. I'm trying to get that line deep enough to get that coarse cutter in there and still follow the groove. Alright, so that's our line. Alright, and then the coarse cutter comes in. Just like so. And we deepen that line and make it a little more defined. Alright, so yeah, what happens now, as you go along, these diamonds, they begin to get sharper and sharper as you bring them more and more up to a point. And once you get them to that point, you're done. You don't do any more except when it comes time to come back with that fine cutter and do that. Okay, so those are the basic tools. Again, I showed you a couple other ones. I'll give you a real quick demonstration on those. This tool was our little nook and cranny tool. So, for instance, getting right down in this corner, I'm at the wrong angle to do it, but this would be the right tool to get me down in there with some control so I could get the lines right up against the border in there. Anywhere where it's real tight, or if you're working with a real fancy pattern that has scroll work inside, you can use this to get up close without doing any damage to that work that you did. So that's what that one's for. And again, this is the whoopsie tool. This guy here we use to make a line that's not quite straight, and we just get in that line and we kind of keep this down on there flat so that it stays pretty much true to the groove, and then we just follow it like that, and that will take a line that went straightly, slightly off course and help to bring it back straight. But the problem is if you don't realize what you've done and you've gone too far before you bring this tool into play, it's going to be really hard to fix it, really hard. All right, so that's that. So now what we're going to do now is we're going to break away. We're going to come back, and the stock is going to be reversed, and we're going to show you exactly how to lay out that pattern using those tools that we showed you on the bench a few minutes ago. Okay, so let's do that, and I'll cut away here, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so now we're looking at the other side And what we've got is, this one's a little bit different. It's got the palm swell in it, so it's got this nice lump right here sticking in the stock that helps to center it in your palm. Just helps with accuracy. It's a nice feature. You'll find it on a lot of the custom rifles. So at any rate, we have to kind of work the pattern over that swell, so it's going to make it a little more difficult because this isn't as flexible as I'd hope, but I'm sure we can take care of it. Now, we're going to get the distance here so that it's the same from the line where the grip cap comes in contact with the stock. So that's our nice straight line. We're going to work off that. Now, I've already marked the distance right here. I made a little distance marker so that I can put this down on the line. I don't know if you can see that tiny little line that I made. And I'm going to put a little dot on the stock that corresponds with that line right there. All right, so now I'm going to bring the grip panel pattern, and I'm going to put it on the stock like this. Try to keep it centered on that line so it stays an equal distance off that line. Just like that, and then take a look at how it looks. So yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. So we're going to start here, down at the bottom of the pattern. We're going to make that line first, and the reason we do that first is that way we can always check to make sure that we're sitting on that line nice and straight, and then we know the pattern, we can work off that and always be back on the same basic line. So again, right here we're going to make that first straight line with the grease pencil, just like that. And then without disturbing this, if I can, I'm just going to kind of use my fingers to follow the contour a little bit and to try to hold it down, especially where the stock contours are a little bit tough. And then I'm going to just follow that line again, just like that. Now right up here there's a gap, so I'm going to move a finger to help me with that gap and keep it down, because otherwise that line won't be true. Alright, we'll come around the top here. Try not to disturb your pattern. Keep it right where it belongs on the stock. We'll come around the top. Okay. Now again, without disturbing anything, it's time to do the bottom. We'll start right here. Now because of that swell, I'm going to have to work a little slower here, so I'm going to make a little bit of my line. And right about where that swell starts to work, I'm going to come in here and push it down, make a little more of my line. And then I'm going to keep working around that by keeping the cardboard in contact with the stock so that we get a nice true line like that. Alright, so now we lift that off, and there's our pattern drawn onto the wood. Okay, and so now we're going to use the bordering tool to basically follow that pattern. And once we've done that, then we have the pattern laid out and we can begin the checkering process. Okay, so bordering tool. I'm going to use the outside edge, the right hand side of the cutter, to follow the line. And then I'm going to use that way we're not making this pattern bigger, we're keeping it within the dimensions of the cardboard that we just used. Alright, so again, put my magnifiers on. I'm going to get my face down in here. And just try to stay nice and straight. And don't put too much pressure at first. We're just trying to draw a little line here. Once you get a line established, you can go back with the bordering tool again and just keep repeating that until you get down to the depth that you're looking for. What I'm doing right now, I'm sure you can't see, but I'm kind of rocking the tool a little to the right because it's not I'm not holding it properly, so it's not cutting as evenly on both sides. All right, so now we have that bottom line established. Okay, and so now we're just going to kind of work around the stock and try to make this same border line all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to finish that up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so we've repeated or completed the outline or the border. You can see I made a little mistake. I went all the lines up there, and there's still a few things to clean up, but we got the basic idea down on the stock. So now we can move over to this next portion, and what this is about is we're going to lay out that diamond pattern that we're going to scribe into the wood. We do that with this diamond that I made and showed you earlier. So we're going to just lay it out like this. Now I want to try to get it to aim from the bottom pretty much centered to the top pretty much centered, and I think that that's about the best we're going to get. Okay, so it's aiming towards the top center, but it's starting down here where it's actually meeting at the corners of the pattern. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. Alright, so now while I hold all that down very carefully, I'm going to scribe my first line just like that. I'm going to scribe that second line. Like that. There we go. Okay, so that's our lines. Now, next step, remember I told you about this little blue piece of fabric? Well, that's where we're going to use this. We're going to put it on the line, so it's more or less straight along the line and following the contour of the stock, like that. Just like that. Okay, and now we're going to do the same thing on this line right here. Get it lined up. Sorry, I bumped you there. There we go. That's about where I want it, I think. Alright, now that the pattern's laid out, we're going to use our coarse cutter, and we're going to make a couple of nice straight grooves if we can. Try to stay on that line. Just like that. The cutter wants to go pretty straight, so you just kind of keep an eye on it as you follow your line. As you hit the contours, like for instance I have to come over the top of this, so I'm going to roll with it. I can turn the stock a little bit in my cradle. That helps me stay on the line too. Alright, now we have our first line. Like so. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to do the second line. I probably should turn this vise a little bit. Okay, so now I can come at this from another angle. In fact, I'm going to do that with it and turn it this way just a little bit. And now I can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to start at the middle this time and just work my way down to this corner. Just like that. Alright. Then I'll come back from this side and I'll finish it off going the other direction. Alright. Alright, so with those lines laid out, I have the beginnings of my pattern, and all I'm going to do is just work from using the right cutter, and over here I'll be using the left cutter, over here I'll be using the right cutter, over here I'll be using the left cutter, and we're going to just kind of expand on those lines and make the checkering pattern. Alright, so basically all we're going to do is get a hold of our spacer again, our right hand cutter, and I'm going to start on this line down the bottom here, and I'm going to make the next line to the right. Following the line. There we go. Alright, let's call it quits for today. Well, for me for today, and for you, just a second or two while we resume the camera. Well, okay, I'm back. It's been a couple of days for me and a couple of seconds for you. You'll probably notice right away that while I was away, before we get started again, I re-angled the camera. Hopefully that'll give you a slightly better view without me being in the way as we do the work. So anyway, we're going to begin to work from left to right using the right hand cutter, which is this guy right here. But before I do, I'm just going to make sure I've got a good line. So I'm going to go ahead and with my coarse tool, I'm just going to finish this line up a little more so I can be assured that we'll stay in that groove when we use the next cutter, which is that right hand cutter that we talked about. Alright, now this is going to be a tedious job, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us started here, and then I'm going to speed up the camera. We'll play some music, and I'll shut up for a while, and you'll be able to see how the job progresses as we move along, and it won't take as long, because obviously this is quite tedious. It's going to take a while. So anyway, we're going to quit with the talking now. We'll speed up the camera, and I'll show you how the progress goes. So here we go. Alright, so the hard part is over. We finished the checkering on both sides of the grip. I finished it off camera. Don't look too close. There's several mistakes. Like I said, it's been a long time since I picked up any checkering tools, and even when I did it on a fairly regular basis, I wasn't that good at it. It's a fairly tedious job. I get tired of it pretty quick. But at any rate, we've got a pretty good pattern. It's very sharp, so it's very functional checkering. It's not like the press stuff that you get from the factory when you buy a factory stock. It's rare to get a hand-cut checkered stock unless you're ordering something custom. So at any rate, that's really nice. It does actually serve a function instead of just looking pretty on the stock like so many other factory checkering jobs. They're doing laser now, which is quite a bit better. It actually gives you a nice checkering effect as well. But this is the old-fashioned way, and now you know how it's done. So what we've done in the meantime is I came back, and all of those overruns that I had shown you, all the little scratches where I ran out of the border, I went ahead and sanded those out and cleaned it up, and then I refinished the stock in those areas. And for that purpose, if you go back and you look, you can see the basic process for finishing the stock itself. And when you repair it, you use the same process. You put some finish on, you let it dry, you sand it out, and then you smooth around and spread that mud just like we did on earlier videos. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can search back through previous videos on this particular stock, and you can see exactly what the process is. And all you're doing is you're concentrating it into little areas wherever you had to repair the stock. So that's basically what I did. I used the smooth side, not smooth, but the finer side of a ordinary nail file. I had my wife pick some of these up last time she was out shopping, and these work great. You can cut them with scissors to put them into any shape you want. As they get dull, you can cut them back. And then once you finish with this grit, what I would do is I would take a 400 grit piece of paper and just wrap it over, and then I could use that in some of those tight areas as well. And that's the finish grit there. I only went up to 400 on the finish on this gun, so that worked out quite well. So what's left to do? Well, if you notice, there's a little bit of finish inside the checkering already, and that was just from when I was fixing these scratches on the outside. But now it's time to put the finish in the checkering. And we don't do that by using the True Oil, which is this stuff here that we use to finish the stock. We don't put that on straight when we get into the checkering, because that tends to fill that checkering pattern and reduce its effect. So what we have to do is thin this out first, and the way we do that is by putting it in a little container. This thing is gelled up since we did the stock. This True Oil tends to get kind of jelly, and so that, you can see that big glob just fell in there. But so basically, yep, there's another big glob. So anyway, that's what happens to True Oil after a while. You can see it kind of gets some solids in it, but we're going to fix that because we don't need it as thick as this anyway. So we're going to thin it out, and we're going to use ordinary mineral spirits to do that. We don't need much, just a little bit, like so. Like that. And I'm just going to stir it up and try to get those clumps out of the True Oil. Like so. And when it's thin enough, we'll go ahead and apply it into the checkering. That's looking good now. Alright. And again, we don't want to use it straight because that thick finish will kind of clog up the checkering. So now you can see it's quite a bit thinner. And to apply it, we use an ordinary, really dirty toothbrush. And I keep these on my bench. These come in handy for all sorts of applications, whether you be cleaning out little areas and so forth. So I use toothbrushes all the time. So they're cheap enough. I just keep a few on the bench. So now what I'm going to do is just scrub this in the direction that the checkering lines are scratched. And that'll drag that finish through just like this. See that? And we're just going to spread it around. Alright, so now I'm just going to wipe it off, just like we did when we were doing the stock finishing. And you can see that looks beautiful, doesn't it? So that's the way you finish in the checkering. We'll go ahead and flip it around. I'll do the other side one more time for you. Good. Okay, so once again, we're going to take the toothbrush. We're going to apply a little bit of that oil that we thinned out with the mineral spirit. And we'll just go down through the checkering just like that. Now on the checkering, I only do this once. I'm not going to come back and do another coat. I'm just going to leave that one coat just to seal the wood and make everything look the way it's supposed to look. So there you go. That's a finished checkering job. Not the best job you're ever going to see, but you're not going to notice it unless you look close. Most people wouldn't even take a second look. I know where all the mistakes are, so I see them every time I pick the stock up. But most people won't notice it, at least not at first glance, not unless they're studying the work. So anyway, this stock is just about done. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit more as far as buffing it out. Like I said, we'll put another coat of wax on it. We're going to call that done, and then we're going to bring that gun out, the action itself, and we're going to go ahead and tune that up. We're going to put a new Macari kit in it. It's a ARH Hornet kit, so it's a little bit of a performance kit for this rifle. This is the HW95, as you know, and so I'm looking forward to getting this finished. I don't know if you caught it earlier in the video. I told you we're not going to checker the fore end, and the reason for that is because, first of all, I don't use the fore end when I shoot. I shoot off a bag, and I pretty much hardly ever touch the fore end with my hand. So I just rest this on a bag, and I don't want any checkering here to interfere with the motion of the rifle at the shot. I want that to be able to slide freely on the bag, so having a nice smooth surface under here is actually desirable. And besides that, there's really no need for checkering in the front. It's a lot of work. I don't enjoy it. It takes a long time, as you can see. So at any rate, we're going to leave that fore end. I think it looks just right. And we're going to let this dry. We'll come back, and like I said, we'll buff it out with some rubbing compound. We'll put another coat of wax on it, and then the stock will be finished. Okay, so the custom left-hand stock for the HW95 is complete. that means that we're just about at the end of the tunnel on this project. Next video will be the last in this series, and that's where we're going to install that's where we're going to install the air rifle headquarter or Makari tune kit, and that's the Hornet kit for this gun, and that should produce some impressive numbers. We're going to slap it all together again, and we'll take a good look and ogle over this beautiful rifle next time, and we're also going to put it on a bench and make a few test shots and maybe run it over the crony just for fun. So at any rate, I want to thank you guys for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel today. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. Hit the bell to be reminded of future videos, and by all means, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this one. Thanks again, folks. Have a great day.